Jack was used to strange sights on this alien planet. As a soldier on an intergalactic peace mission, he had seen creatures and landscapes beyond his wildest imagination. But nothing prepared him for the encounter he was about to have today. He was patrolling the outskirts of the human base, keeping an eye on the thick forest that surrounded the camp. The planet's air was hot and heavy, making his gear feel twice as heavy. Jack wiped the sweat from his forehead and took a deep breath, pushing through the thick undergrowth. Everything seemed quiet until he noticed movement ahead. A figure appeared between the trees, walking slowly toward him. At first, he couldn't make out much detail, but as she came closer, Jack realized it was one of the aliens. She was tall, slender, with skin that shimmered in the sunlight, a soft shade of blue with faint patterns that reminded him of ocean waves. Her eyes, large and glowing, were focused entirely on him. There was something intense about her gaze. Jack's hand instinctively went to his weapon, but he hesitated. She didn't look like a threat. In fact, she looked more nervous than anything. "Hey," Jack called out, trying to sound calm. "Can I help you?" The alien girl stopped a few feet away from him. She stood still for a moment, staring at him as if trying to decide what to say. Then, in a voice that was surprisingly soft and clear, she spoke. "You are the human soldier, yes?" Jack blinked, surprised that she knew who he was. Yeah, that's me. My name's Jack. What's yours?" "I am called Sarah," she said, her voice steady, but carrying a sense of urgency. "I need your help." Jack frowned, curious now. "Help with what?" Sarah took a step closer, her eyes never leaving his. "I need something from you. A sample." "A sample?" Jack repeated, confused. "What kind of sample?" Sarah hesitated, her glowing eyes flickering with uncertainty. Then she spoke again, this time with more seriousness. "A breeding sample." Jack stared at her, his mind taking a moment to process what she had just said. Did she really mean what he thought she did? A breeding sample? From him? His brain raced as he tried to make sense of it. "What?" he finally managed to say, feeling more awkward than he had in a long time. "Our species is in danger," Chara explained, her voice calm but filled with a quiet desperation. "We are facing extinction. We cannot reproduce as we once did. We have been studying humans for some time now, and we believe that your DNA could save us." Jack shook his head, not sure if he was hearing her correctly. Wait. You want me to give you a breeding sample? Like you want to?" Zara nodded seriously. "Yes. Your genetics are strong. We believe human DNA could merge with ours and allow our species to survive." Jack was stunned. This was not the kind of conversation he had expected to have during a routine patrol. He felt his face heat up, a mix of embarrassment and confusion washing over him. "You're telling me your people have been studying us and think human DNA is the answer to your survival?" he asked, still trying to wrap his head around it. "Yes," Sarah confirmed. "We have analyzed the human genome, and it appears compatible with our biology. But we need to test this. That is why I have come to you." Jack scratched the back of his neck, feeling completely out of his depth. "Look, I don't know what kind of customs your people have, but where I come from, asking for that is kind of a big deal. I mean, I'm not even sure I'm allowed to." "We are desperate, Jack," Sarah interrupted, stepping closer. "Without this, my people will die out. You are our only hope." The weight of her words hung in the air. Jack looked into her glowing eyes and saw the fear behind them. She wasn't just asking as part of some scientific experiment. This was a matter of survival for her species. Jack exhaled slowly, trying to think clearly. This was beyond anything he had ever expected to deal with. Part of him wanted to refuse outright, but another part of him couldn't ignore the desperation in her voice. How does this work exactly?" he asked, his voice hesitant. Zara's face softened slightly, sensing that Jack was starting to consider her request. "We have a safe, simple procedure," she said. "It will not harm you in any way. I will explain everything if you agree." Jack remained silent for a moment, his mind racing. He had no idea what to do, but he knew one thing. This was not going to be an ordinary day. Jack's confusion. 750 words. Jack stood there, staring at Sarah, still trying to wrap his mind around what she had just asked him. A breeding sample. He couldn't believe this was happening. Just moments ago, he was on a routine patrol, and now an alien girl was asking for something so personal. His head felt like it was spinning. Sarah, on the other hand, looked calm, as if what she had asked was the most normal thing in the world. Her glowing eyes never left his, and Jack couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't going to leave until she got what she came for. "Wait," Jack finally managed to say, raising a hand. "I don't understand. You want? What exactly?" Zara's expression didn't change. "A breeding sample. It is a part of your DNA. You humans call it sperm. We need it to help our species survive." Jack felt his face flush. Of course, he knew what she was asking for, but hearing it said so bluntly made him even more uncomfortable. "I get that," he said quickly. "But why me? Why humans?" Sarah tilted her head slightly, as if this question was strange to her. "We have studied many species," she explained. "Humans are unique. Your genetic structure is compatible with ours. If we combine our DNA with yours, there is a chance we can save our people from extinction." Jack couldn't believe what he was hearing. He had heard of alien species with strange customs and ways of life, but this was beyond anything he could have imagined. He scratched the back of his head, trying to think of what to say next. "So, you're saying your people have been watching us, studying humans?" Sarah nodded. "Yes, for many years. Your strength, your adaptability, it is what we need. We do not have the ability to reproduce like we once did. If we cannot find a solution, my people will not survive." Jack took a step back, trying to process everything. This was insane. How could he, one human soldier, be part of something like this? He thought about all the rules he was supposed to follow, all the regulations about not interfering with alien species unless absolutely necessary. And this definitely wasn't in the handbook. This is a lot to take in," Jack muttered, looking down at the ground for a moment. He could feel Xara's eyes on him, waiting for his answer. "I mean, I don't even know if I'm allowed to do this. There are rules. I'm just a soldier, not some donor." Sarah took a small step closer, her voice soft but firm. "This is not just about rules, Jack. It is about survival. My people are dying. We have no other choice. You are the key to our future." Jack looked up at her, feeling the weight of her words. She wasn't asking this as some kind of experiment. This was real. It was life or death for her and her species. Still, it felt so wrong. How was he supposed to make a decision like this? He wasn't a scientist or a doctor. He was just a guy with a rifle, doing his job. "What happens if I say no?" Jack asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Sarah's glowing eyes dimmed slightly, and for the first time, she looked vulnerable. "If you say no, we will keep looking. But time is running out. We do not have many options left. Every day, more of my people are lost. We are running out of time." Jack could see the desperation in her face now. She wasn't just some cold, calculating alien. She was scared. Her people were scared. And somehow, he had become a part of this. He took a deep breath, trying to think clearly. "Okay, let's say I agree. How does this even work? I mean, I can't just, you know." Zara's expression softened, and she nodded. "We have a procedure. It is safe, and you will not be harmed. It is simply a collection of your DNA. Nothing more. You will not have to do anything you do not wish to." Jack felt a strange mix of relief and confusion. At least it wasn't as bad as he had imagined. But still, This was a big decision. He looked at Sarah again, seeing the hope in her eyes. She was counting on him, and that made things even harder. "I don't know," Jack said slowly, rubbing his forehead. "This is a lot to ask. I mean, what happens after? What if it doesn't work? What if something goes wrong?" "We will take full responsibility," Sarah said firmly. "You have my word. Nothing will happen to you. All we ask is for a chance." Jack stood there, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He had always been a guy who followed orders, stuck to the rules. But now he was faced with something much bigger than any order he'd ever been given. He was faced with a choice that could change the future of an entire species. A difficult choice, 750 words. Jack stood in the silence of the dense alien forest, his mind swirling with thoughts. The request Kara had made was still fresh in his mind, and he couldn't shake the feeling of responsibility pressing down on him. A breeding sample. The words echoed in his head. He had never been asked for something like this in his life. And now, an alien species was depending on him. He looked at Sarah, who stood quietly in front of him. Her glowing blue eyes were filled with hope and a quiet desperation. She hadn't moved from her spot, watching him closely, waiting for his answer. Jack could tell she was trying to be patient, but he could feel her urgency. "This is insane," Jack muttered to himself. He turned away from her for a moment, running his hand through his hair. How could he make a decision like this? He was just a soldier, here to keep the peace, not to get involved in some alien reproductive crisis. But then again, this wasn't just some minor problem. Sarah's people were facing extinction, and she had made it clear that human DNA was their last hope. Jack couldn't ignore the weight of her words. If he refused, they might not survive. Could he really live with that on his conscience? He glanced back at Sarah, who hadn't said a word. Her eyes followed his every move, filled with a mixture of hope and fear. Jack knew she was desperate, and that made the decision even harder. "Look, Sarah," Jack began, his voice uncertain. "This is a huge thing you're asking for. I mean, it's not just about giving you what you want. There are rules. I'm a soldier. I'm not supposed to interfere with other species like this." Sarah nodded slowly, but her expression didn't change. "I understand, Jack, but this is not just about rules. This is about survival. If we do not find a solution soon, my people will be lost forever." Jack sighed, turning his gaze to the ground. He could feel the weight of the situation on his shoulders, and it made him uncomfortable. He wasn't used to making decisions like this. Usually, he just followed orders, did what he was told. But now, it felt like the universe was asking him to decide the fate of an entire species. "Why me?" Jack asked suddenly, looking back at Sarah. "Out of all the people you could have asked, why did you come to me?" Sarah took a step closer, her glowing eyes locking onto his. "Because you are strong. We have watched you. You have shown great courage and compassion. You care about others, even when it is difficult. That is why I believe you will help us." Jack didn't know how to respond to that. Being called strong and courageous was one thing, but this felt like too much. He had never seen himself as someone important, just a regular guy doing his job. But now, Sarah was asking him to be something more. "What if it doesn't work?" Jack asked, his voice quiet. "What if I help you and it doesn't make a difference?" Xera's eyes softened. "We do not know what the outcome will be, but we have to try. If we do nothing, we are doomed. At least this way, we have hope, and that hope lies in you." Jack could feel the pressure building inside him. Part of him wanted to walk away, to tell Sarah that he couldn't help, that it was too much to ask. But another part of him, the part that had always pushed him to do the right thing, knew he couldn't turn his back on her. He thought about what she had said earlier. Her people were dying, and they had been searching for a way to save themselves. They believed that human DNA could be the key, and now they were looking to him for that answer. Jack didn't understand all the science behind it, but he didn't need to. He could see the pain in Sarah's eyes, and that was enough to make him reconsider. "I'm not saying yes yet," Jack said carefully, his mind still racing. "But if I agree, how does this work? What's involved?" Zara's expression brightened just a little, and she stepped even closer. "It is a simple procedure. We will collect the sample safely, without causing you any harm. You will not be forced to do anything you do not want to do. All we need is your consent." Jack nodded slowly, his heart pounding in his chest. He was still unsure, still filled with doubt. But he knew one thing. Zara's people needed him, and he couldn't ignore that. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about something bigger, something that could save lives. "Okay," Jack said softly, his voice steady but hesitant. "I'll think about it." Sarah smiled, her glowing eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Jack. That is all we ask." Learning about Sarah's world, 750 words. After agreeing to consider her request, Jack followed Sarah through the thick forest of her planet. The trees were tall and strange, with glowing leaves that lit up the path as they walked. Jack couldn't help but feel like he had stepped into another world, far from the simple life he was used to. As they walked, Jack's mind was still racing. He had so many questions about Sarah, her people, and this breeding sample situation. He wanted to understand what he was getting into. This wasn't just a simple mission anymore. It was turning into something much bigger. "Sarah," Jack finally said, breaking the silence, "can you tell me more about your world? Your people? I need to understand why this is happening." Sarah glanced at him, her glowing eyes reflecting the soft light from the trees. She nodded. "Of course. I will explain everything." As they continued walking, Sarah began to tell Jack about her world, a planet called Zivara. Once it had been a place of great beauty and abundance. Her people, the Zivarans, had thrived here for thousands of years. They were a peaceful race, advanced in technology and science, but with a deep respect for nature and life. "We used to be much like your people," Sarah explained. "We built great cities, explored the stars, and lived in harmony with our planet. But over time, something went wrong. Our ability to reproduce began to weaken. Fewer and fewer children were born each year, and we couldn't figure out why." Jack listened carefully, trying to imagine what it must have been like for Sarah and her people. A world where new life was slowly disappearing. It sounded like a nightmare. "We tried everything," Sarah continued, her voice growing softer. "We searched for cures, for ways to fix what was broken in us. But nothing worked. Our people grew desperate. We started to explore other planets, other species, hoping we could find a solution." Jack nodded, his mind piecing together the situation. "And that's when you found humans." Sarah looked at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and sadness. "Yes, your species is strong, adaptable. Our scientists believe that your DNA might hold the key to saving us. If we can combine it with ours, we might be able to restore our ability to reproduce." Jack's thoughts were spinning. It was hard to imagine an entire species on the brink of extinction, and even harder to think that humans could be their only hope. He looked at Sarah, wondering how she felt about all of this. Was she scared, desperate, or had she just accepted her fate? "What about you, Sarah?" Jack asked quietly. "How do you feel about all this? About me being part of your people's plan?" Zara was silent for a moment, her glowing eyes focused on the path ahead. When she spoke, her voice was soft. "It is difficult. I never imagined I would have to ask someone for this. But I have no choice. My people are dying, and I must do whatever I can to save them. If that means asking for your help, then I will." Jack felt a pang of sympathy for her. She wasn't just some alien asking for a favor. She was carrying the weight of her entire species on her shoulders. And now, that weight was being shared with him. They continued walking until they reached a large clearing in the forest. In the center of the clearing was a massive structure, unlike anything Jack had ever seen before. It was sleek and metallic, with glowing lines running along its surface, and it seemed to pulse with a soft, blue light. "This is our research facility," Sarah said, gesturing toward the structure. "It is where we conduct our experiments, where we study other species, and where we hope to find a solution." Jack stared at the building, feeling a strange mix of curiosity and unease. This was the heart of their plan, the place where they hoped to save their people. And now he was about to step inside and become a part of it. "Are you sure this will work?" Jack asked, his voice low. "What if it doesn't? What if you can't save your people?" Sarah looked at him, her expression serious. "We do not know for certain, but we have to try. If we do nothing, our fate is sealed. But with your help, we have a chance." Jack nodded, still unsure about everything, but feeling a growing sense of responsibility. He didn't know how things would turn out, but he couldn't walk away now. Sarah and her people were depending on him, and no matter how strange or difficult it was, he had to do his part. As they approached the facility, Jack took a deep breath. He was about to step into a world he didn't fully understand, but there was no turning back now. "Let's do this," he said, his voice steady but uncertain. Sarah gave him a small, grateful smile. "Thank you, Jack. You have no idea what this means to us." With that, they stepped inside the facility, and Jack knew that his life, and the fate of an entire species, was about to change forever. Jack decides to help. Jack stood in the center of the alien research facility, his mind filled with conflicting thoughts. The facility's walls glowed with the same soft blue light he had seen outside, casting strange shadows around him. It felt otherworldly, like something from a dream. But this wasn't a dream. It was real, and Jack had a decision to make. Sarah watched him closely, her glowing eyes filled with hope and worry. She hadn't said much since they entered the facility, giving Jack the space to think. But Jack knew she was waiting for him to make up his mind. Jack took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. He thought about everything Sarah had told him. Her people were facing extinction, and they believed that human DNA could be their last hope. Jack wasn't sure if it would work, but he knew one thing for sure. Sarah's people didn't have much time left. He looked around the room, noticing the advanced alien technology all around him. Strange devices hummed softly. Glowing screens displayed data in a language Jack couldn't understand, and in the center of it all was a sleek chair, where Jack would sit if he agreed to help. It all seemed overwhelming, but the truth was simple. Sarah's people needed him. Without his help, they might disappear forever, and Jack couldn't live with that on his conscience. He turned to Sarah, his face serious. "Okay," he said, his voice steady. "I'll do it. I'll help." Sarah's eyes widened with relief and gratitude. She stepped forward, her expression softening as she placed a gentle hand on Jack's arm. "Thank you, Jack. You don't know what this means to us." Jack nodded, still feeling the weight of the decision on his shoulders. "I just hope it works." Sarah led him to the center of the room, where the chair waited. "We have done everything we can to make this process safe," she explained. "You will not be harmed. We simply need to collect the sample, and the procedure will be over quickly." Jack sat down in the chair, feeling the cold metal beneath him. His mind was still racing, but he tried to stay calm. He trusted Sarah. She hadn't given him any reason to doubt her, and he could see how much this meant to her and her people. As Kyra moved to the control panel, preparing the equipment, Jack's thoughts drifted. He thought about Earth, about the people back home. What would they think if they knew what he was about to do? Would they understand? Would they even believe him? But then he remembered something his commanding officer had once told him. Sometimes, being a soldier means making tough choices. It's not always about following orders. It's about doing what's right. And right now, Jack knew that helping Zara's people was the right thing to do. The room was quiet, except for the soft hum of the machines. Sarah approached him with a small device in her hand, its sleek design unfamiliar to Jack. She paused for a moment, her eyes meeting his. "Are you ready?" she asked gently. Jack nodded. "As ready as I'll ever be." Sarah gave him a reassuring smile and began the procedure. Jack felt a slight pressure on his arm as the device made contact, but it wasn't painful. He watched as Sarah worked with steady hands, her focus entirely on the task at hand. Within moments, it was over. The device beeped softly, and Sarah stepped back, holding the collected sample carefully. "That's it?" Jack asked, surprised at how quick it had been. Sarah nodded, her expression relieved. "Yes, it's done." Jack stood up from the chair, stretching his arms. He felt fine, better than he had expected, actually. It was strange to think that something so simple could have such a big impact. Sarah placed the sample in a secure container, sealing it with care. She turned to Jack, her eyes glowing with gratitude. "You've given us hope, Jack. More than you know." Jack rubbed the back of his neck, feeling a little awkward. "I just hope it works." Sarah smiled softly. "So do we. But no matter what happens, you have done something truly important today. You have given us a chance." Jack nodded, feeling the weight of her words. He had always thought of himself as just another soldier, following orders and doing his duty. But today, he had made a decision that could change the fate of an entire species. As he stood there, watching Sarah secure the sample that could save her people, Jack realized something. He had come to this planet expecting nothing more than a routine mission. But now, he had become part of something much bigger. And for the first time in a long time, Jack felt like he was truly making a difference. With a deep breath, he turned to Sarah. "What happens next?" Sarah's eyes sparkled with hope. "Now, we wait, and we pray that the future will be kind to us." Jack nodded. He had done his part. And now, all they could do was hope. As they stood together in the quiet of the alien facility, Jack knew that whatever happened next, he had made the right choice. The procedure begins. Jack watched as Kara prepared for the next step. The room was filled with strange machines, all buzzing softly and glowing in various colors. Everything felt surreal, like he was in the middle of a science fiction movie. But this was real, and the weight of the moment pressed down on him. Sarah moved with confidence, adjusting settings on the control panel. "We will begin the procedure soon," she said, her voice steady. "I need you to stay calm, Jack. This is a critical moment for us." Jack nodded, trying to push his nerves aside. He had agreed to help, but now that he was here, reality hit him hard. He was about to become part of an experiment that could change everything for Sarah's people. The thought made his heart race. "What exactly will happen?" Jack asked, wanting to know more about what he was getting into. Sarah looked at him, her glowing eyes serious. "We will combine your DNA with a sample from our species. Our scientists believe that this fusion could restore our ability to reproduce. It is a process we have practiced many times, but this will be the first time with a human." Jack took a deep breath, trying to wrap his head around the idea. "And you think this will work? I mean, there's no guarantee, right?" Sarah paused, her expression softening. "There are no guarantees in science, Jack. But we have to try. Your willingness to help gives us hope. We believe that with your help, we can save my people." Jack felt a wave of responsibility wash over him. He wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was part of something much bigger. He was standing at the edge of hope and despair for an entire species. "Okay," he said finally, trying to sound more confident than he felt. "Let's do it." Sarah smiled, a mixture of relief and gratitude in her eyes. "Thank you, Jack. You are brave." With that, Sarah walked back to the control panel, and Jack settled into the chair again. He felt the cold metal beneath him, a reminder of the reality of the situation. As Sarah worked, he could feel the tension in the air. It was palpable, almost like electricity. The machines around him began to hum louder, and a soft light enveloped Jack. He glanced at Sarah, who was focused on the screens in front of her. Her hands moved quickly, typing commands and adjusting settings. She looked determined, and that gave Jack a small sense of comfort. "Are you ready?" Sarah asked, her voice calm despite the growing intensity of the machines. Jack took a deep breath. "As ready as I'll ever be." "Good. I will begin the process now," she said, pressing a button. Suddenly, the room filled with a bright light, and Jack felt a strange sensation wash over him. It was like a warm wave flowing through his body. He looked down at his arms, seeing the light reflecting off his skin. It felt odd, but not painful. "Stay relaxed, Jack," Sarah instructed, her voice soothing. "We need to keep your body stable for the procedure to work." Jack nodded, focusing on his breathing. The warmth continued to spread, and he felt a sense of calmness wash over him. He closed his eyes, allowing himself to sink into the moment. It was easy to let the anxiety fade away, replaced by a strange sense of peace. As the procedure continued, Jack became aware of the sounds around him. The machines hummed and beeped, and he could hear Sarah typing commands. Time seemed to stretch, and he lost track of how long he had been sitting there. "Jack," Sarah said suddenly, breaking his concentration, "I need you to focus on me. We are about to start the main part of the process." He opened his eyes and looked at her. She was standing close, her expression serious but encouraging. "I'm here," he replied, feeling a rush of determination. Sarah smiled slightly. "Thank you. Now, I will begin to extract your DNA. You may feel a small pinch. It is important to stay still." Jack nodded, steeling himself for what was to come. He could feel the anticipation building inside him. The room was filled with a charged energy, and he knew they were at a critical moment. Sarah moved closer, and Jack felt a small device touch his arm. There was a brief moment of pressure, followed by a quick sting. He winced but reminded himself to stay still. This was for Sarah's people, for their survival. "You're doing great, Jack," Sarah said softly, her voice steadying him. "Just a little longer." As she worked, Jack's mind drifted back to the reason he was here. He thought about the Ziverans, their struggles, and the hope they were placing in him. He wanted to believe that this would make a difference. "Will they be okay?" Jack asked suddenly, his voice filled with concern. "If this works, will they be saved?" Sarah looked up from her work, her expression thoughtful. "We can only hope, Jack. But without this, we are lost. You are giving us a chance to survive." Jack felt a mix of fear and determination. He wanted to be brave for them. He wanted to believe that what he was doing mattered. As the procedure continued, the warm sensation enveloped him again. Jack focused on his breathing, letting the warmth fill him with strength. This was his moment to make a difference, to help save an entire species. With that thought in mind, Jack knew he was ready to face whatever came next. He would do anything for Sarah and her people. He had made his choice, and now it was time to see it through. A new beginning. Jack opened his eyes to a dimly lit room, the soft glow of the machines surrounding him providing a sense of warmth. He felt different, but he couldn't quite place why. As he sat up, memories of the procedure flooded back to him. The warmth, the buzzing machines, and Sarah's calm voice guiding him through it all. He took a deep breath, feeling a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. Had it worked? Would it help Sarah's people? The thought raced through his mind as he swung his legs over the side of the chair, feeling the cool floor beneath his feet. "Jack!" Sarah's voice broke through his thoughts, and he turned to see her rushing toward him, her glowing eyes filled with anticipation. "You're awake. How do you feel?" "I'm not sure," he replied, rubbing his temples. "A little tired, but otherwise okay." "Did it work? Did we succeed?" Sarah's face lit up with a hopeful smile. "Yes, the procedure went well. Our scientists are analyzing the sample now. We believe it may hold the key to our survival." Jack felt a rush of relief wash over him. He had done it. He had helped Xara and her people. But as excitement bubbled within him, a question lingered in the back of his mind. What happens next? Now we wait, Xara said, her voice filled with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. But I want to show you something first. She took Jack's hand and led him through the facility. As they walked, Jack couldn't help but notice the vibrant colors of the walls and the strange shapes of the machinery. It all felt so different, yet oddly beautiful. Xara stopped in front of a large window, and Jack stepped up beside her. Outside, he could see a lush landscape bathed in soft light. It was a breathtaking view. Rolling hills dotted with colorful plants and trees that shimmered as if they were alive. This is Zivara, Xara said, pride evident in her voice. This is the world we are fighting to save. Jack gazed out at the scenery, feeling a deep connection to the place. It's beautiful, he said softly. I can see why you want to protect it. Xara nodded, her expression growing serious. Our world is at risk. If we do not succeed, we will lose everything. But with your help, we have a chance. I believe in our future, Jack. He turned to her, feeling the weight of her words. I hope you're right, Xara. I really do. Just then, a group of Zivaran scientists entered the room, their faces lit with excitement. They approached Xara and Jack, chattering among themselves in their melodic language. Jack couldn't understand what they were saying, but the energy in the air was infectious. Xara translated for him. They have analyzed the sample already, and they believe it could lead to significant breakthroughs in our reproductive capabilities. They are optimistic. Jack felt a thrill of hope. So, what's the next step? The lead scientist stepped forward, a smile stretching across their face. We will begin the experiments immediately. Your DNA, Jack, is a vital part of our research. We believe that it will allow us to create a new generation of Zivarans, ones who can thrive in our world once again. Jack swallowed hard, the reality of the situation sinking in. He was not just a helper anymore. He was part of a new beginning for an entire species. That's incredible. Xara squeezed his hand gently, her eyes shining with gratitude. Thanks to you, we have hope. Together, we will bring life back to Zivara. As the scientists moved to their stations, Jack took a moment to absorb everything. He realized that he was more than just a soldier now. He was a bridge between two worlds. He had the chance to change the course of history, not just for the Zivarans, but for himself as well. Hours passed as the scientists worked diligently, the room buzzing with energy. Jack watched in awe as they carefully manipulated samples, mixing and analyzing. Xara stayed close by his side, her presence comforting. Jack, she said suddenly, her voice serious. I want to thank you again. You have given us a chance to survive. Your bravery will not be forgotten. He smiled, feeling a sense of pride swell within him. I couldn't stand by and watch your people disappear. You all deserve a future. Xara looked at him, her expression softening. And you are part of that future now, Jack. You will always be welcome here. As the scientists continued their work, Jack's mind drifted to the future. What would happen if they succeeded? Would he remain on Zivara? He had left Earth behind, but now he found himself torn between two worlds. The thought made his heart race. Suddenly, the lead scientist turned to Jack, excitement in their eyes. We have a breakthrough. We've discovered a way to stabilize the fusion of your DNA with ours. It's incredible. Jack's heart leaped at the news. So it really might work. Indeed, the scientist replied. If we proceed carefully, we could see the first signs of new life within weeks. Dara's eyes sparkled with joy. This is a new beginning for us, Jack. We are taking the first steps toward restoring our people. Jack felt overwhelmed with emotion. This was more than he had ever hoped for. I'm ready for whatever comes next, he said, determination in his voice. I want to help in any way I can. Xara smiled brightly, her hope shining through. Together, we will make this world flourish again. You have given us a chance, and we will not waste it." As they stood together, watching the scientists work, Jack felt a sense of belonging he hadn't expected. He was no longer just a soldier. He was part of a family, part of a future. And for the first time in a long time, he felt that everything would be okay. Zavara had a chance, and so did he.